Welcome back to another episode of the Long Way Back podcast. I'm your host, Timmy Long. I'm George. I'm joined today by Georgie.
Hi, Timmy. We'll never get it right, will we? I don't think we will.
And today we have Sascha Roos. Sascha was on the podcast, The Two Norries, with myself and James. It was about 2 or 3 years ago, I'd say, Sascha.
2021, yeah.
Yeah. And since then, you've brought out another book, At Home with Dyslexia.
No, it's actually At School with Dyslexia.
I'm not wrong somewhere, though. Tell me, what was the first book?
The first book was At Home with Dyslexia,
There we go.
which is a parent guide. And then this is a study guide.
Can I blame my own dyslexia?
Absolutely.
Because over that?
Yeah, you can.
There's a story behind the three of us here sitting here today.
Yes, there is.
So about 2 years ago, I contacted you and asked you, did you know anybody or did you want to take part in a project that I was at? And the project was raising funds so we could pay for assessments for some of the children here on the north side, particularly my own old primary school and secondary school. And you gave me 2 names. I won't mention one because it's not relevant. And the other name was Georgie. And since then, myself and Georgie have became good friends, you know, and we've started a project where we're in the middle of a charity being registered, which is called Educate All Minds. It was Walk This Way initially. Walk This Way to a better education, George.
That's right. It was Walk This Way to Better Education,
Yeah.
and we did a huge walk to fundraise. We got 30,000 euros.
30,000, and we gave out, was it 40?
It was just over 40
assessments.
And we had
Wow.
4 education psychologists who were brilliant, who helped us.
So thank you for
Yes,
making
thank
this.
you, Sascha.
Who knew that this great friendship and association would happen?
I don't know how
through
she
that.
puts up.
Oh, it's just a great.
It's like, Nicole, I don't know how I'm still fucking married after 20 years. How she didn't throw me
Well,
out.
it's so funny because we've talked about when we first met. I was terrified. I'd open my mouth and he'd think, oh my God, she's just some posh English bird.
Yeah.
And you thought that I was going to think you were something. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, we sort of clicked straight away, which was great.
And here we are.
Here we are.
And you have a new book out.
I have
And
a new
Georgie
book
says,
out.
we must get Sascha on for her new book. And we were only saying, you're the first guest I've had on twice.
I'm
that I've
privileged.
had.
I'm so privileged. Thank you
how
for
are you?
inviting me.
How's everything? And
Good.
just for anybody that hasn't listened before on the Two Norries, what's your background?
Well, when I was on last time, I was there talking about my first book, At Home with Dyslexia, which was a parent guide. And so 6 years after the first one, here's my second, because there was a real need for this particular one.
So
Because it's what I do all the time, is working with teenagers.
what's the
Dyslexic.
difference? What's in this book that you're not going to get in the other one at home?
Well, this is the actual teenager's guide.
Okay.
The first one is for parents, but this is their own book, the teenager's book, because they need a book. They need to know how to study, and they don't know how to study. And the books out there are not dyslexia-friendly. They're all, dense text.
So true.
They don't address the particular concerns of dyslexics, and there's nothing out there. And actually, dyslexics actually want a physical book of their own. I was asking them, all my students, what do you want? So it's very much, how they want it. So there's like blank pages at the end of each chapter so that they can make notes or doodle, things like that. There's QR codes so that they can download the study plans,
I
and
love
the
that.
templates and things like that. So, and it's even more dyslexia friendly than the first one. So there's very, plenty of spacing, very short paragraphs, loads of bullet points, illustrations by Danielle again as well, who illustrated the At Home Dyslexia. And
The font's very clear as well.
font's clear,
Yeah.
and the feel of the paper, because if they've got visual stress or sensory integration difficulties, the papers could be right. I was fearful that it was going to have a glossy cover when it came, but it was like, oh, thank
The
God.
words
it
aren't too
didn't.
close together either. I think that's
Yeah.
very important.
Exactly. So it had to be the right kind of font for them. I checked with students as well. With the publishers, I was very kind of, I was really onto them all the time. You know, if this isn't dyslexia friendly, then we are wasting our time.
Yeah.
And they're just going to flick through it and put it back with all the other study guides on the shelf and just think, I'm just a person who can't study and I'm never going to know how to study.
And you do have to keep working away with publishers because, of course, a lot of them will just try and do it in a cheap way if possible. But so this always takes a little bit of extra time, a little bit of extra effort. But I'm so pleased that you have.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd also add that both your books are also really good for teachers.
I'm seeing here as well. They're an audible.
Yes, that's the difference this time as well.
Yeah.
So last time it was like 2 years before the audiobook came out, but this time it came out the same day, which was just great that they did that. My publishers are really good. So if a student does prefer to access it that way, then fine. But I'm finding actually they mostly want they want to own their own book. There's also a learning style questionnaire in there. So they can find out what kind of learner they are, and then you've got all the strategies.
Yeah.
So
what were you saying about the teachers?
Well, I think it is really important because, for example, I'm a primary school teacher, and but I've ended up working with kids from second level. And when I first started doing it, I was a bit kind of nervous about it because I knew that they needed help with study skills. And I remember having lunch with you, and you said, "Just read my book." And so I did. I read a book and it was absolutely brilliant. And there's some really good tips for teachers because obviously I'm a teacher. But, you know, and in this as well, if a teacher reads this, they'll get a much better understanding of what their learners need.
I would say, particularly for teachers, go to chapter 4, which is about note taking. And, you know, because I haven't said it yet, but there's student quotes throughout, like the first book. So it's very much student led. You know, I'm not dyslexic, so I don't fully know what having dyslexia is, but everybody quoted in here are just teenagers or they're past students of mine. So they are saying what works for them with note taking, what doesn't work, what they don't like about textbooks, ways of teaching that work, ways that don't. So they're quoted in there, you know.
I see. I turned to page 89 and I found in big black bold writing, your phone is a problem. And it's not just a problem for dyslexics, it's also a problem for most teenagers today.
Yeah.
And any form of distraction from getting away from something that's challenging to you is going to be, you're going to grab it, and the phone is a big deal. And I think that's probably an issue for everybody, adults, kids. I think there's more and more.
You don't have to be dyslexic maybe to read that book, actually. Yeah, that chapter is about the barriers to studying. So
what barriers are there for dyslexics?
Distraction, procrastination. Sometimes there's perfectionism is an issue. Also,
that was a big one for me.
Yeah, was it?
That was a really big one for me. My lecturer said to me, "What the fuck are you doing?" He was saying, like, we just need a few answers. I was writing on pages of stuff but I couldn't remember the stuff I was after learning. So I was like, instead of going straight to a fact, I was going all the way around like this, trying to just understand something about what I was writing down and hope that they might understand it.
And you were having to look up words as well, like the definitions of words.
Everything.
It's so laborious.
I had a book. During my lectures, I had this little notepad next to me and I would write down words that I just did not understand. But when I was writing the words down, right, I was lost in the lecture anyway. The minute there was a word there that I didn't understand, because I'm stuck sitting there trying to understand the word he just mentioned, because it was a valid point in the sentence he was saying. It was a big part of the sentence, that word, whatever it meant. And I'm sitting there and I don't know what the sentence meant because I didn't understand what the word was.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure this out. My mind automatically wants to understand this. And he's gone off talking about other stuff. And I'm here still stuck. And while that's happening to me, I'm also becoming anxious.
Of course.
And
of
then
course, yeah.
there's a belief coming in. One of my core beliefs are starting to pop in. Then you shouldn't be here at all.
Yeah.
You should be, you're not able for it. There's something wrong with you. This was before I even knew I was dyslexic. I was 36 or 7 at the time and going into my 3rd year in MTU. And I was struggling at this stage,
I didn't realize you hadn't got a diagnosis before going to MTU. It was during.
It was during.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
It was during. I got away in my 1st and 2nd year because they were practical based modules where I had to make roofs. I had to make a house.
You're that kind of learner.
It was all that. And I was getting fucking 95%.
Yeah,
I got 100%.
Because you're that kind of learner.
Yeah. And then it was coming to the actual academic stuff. And when I went into 3rd year, I went from the wood technology course straight into construction management. And it was like my results started to really change then going into them because it was all stuff that you had to know. There was continuous assessments that you would have to write up essays and reports. And you mentioned perfectionism. I would sit down for days.
Okay.
I mean, days. I sat here in this studio, sitting down at that table about 2 or 3 months ago, trying to do a continuous assessment for my mindfulness course. I sat there for 3 days trying to understand the question of one of the assignments. And I sat there and I was feeling all sorts of stuff and I felt so useless. And I just said, is this in any way or form helping me in any way on a personal level? And I sat there and it wasn't.
It was having the opposite effect of what you were hoping to achieve.
And you know what my next thought was, Georgie? It was, Timmy, leave it off, pack it in. It's not helping you in any way. You've too much going on in your life. Because I knew I was going to put myself into the floor if I didn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
So at that moment in time, I stopped and I went off and I left it.
Yeah, perfectionism is certainly an aspect. There's a chapter all about the emotional side, which is, and I asked my students, there's past students and present students that I interviewed who are in the book, and I asked them about their critical inner voice. And I didn't have to explain what that is or anything, and everybody knew exactly what that was, and they went into describing their critical inner voice.
Mm-hmm.
And quite a lot of it stems from early primary school experiences and how they felt there. And even though they then end up doing brilliantly and getting H1s and A's and things, they still feel they're going to fail.
Is that still happening today?
Yes.
Like you'd understand why it would have happened to me or you or Georgie or Tony even. But like when you have a 13 or 14-year-old, I would expect it not to happen today because teachers should know how to. And I'm not throwing a dig at teachers here now because
I know.
you have to look at the bigger picture here. You have to look at the actual what resources are there for them, and I don't think there are many.
No.
Do you know? I've just come from the workshops that we run with the Dyslexia Ireland, and the teachers, they all had very similar training, but these guys go above and beyond, and they come to these workshops so full of enthusiasm, and they've gone and done the extra training because they really want to understand their learners, and it is so nice to see in the kids with the smiles, and the teachers are really happy because they know, oh yeah, okay, I know what to do. But I also remember graduating as a teacher and going into a classroom in inner city London and they're going, oh my God, I have no idea. I have no idea what to do here. And it's terrifying that is still a situation that is going on.
There is a lack of understanding and training. I mean, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I did the training, but I think most that I've learned has been from my students and from my own research.
Definitely,
just working on the coalface, really.
Yeah.
But I'm still getting, new students this year and hearing about their teachers and their experiences in the classroom. And it's just the same stories that I heard 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Not that understanding of how a dyslexic needs to learn. maybe they do need to fidget to help themselves concentrate, all sorts of.
And that is a big deal, the fidgeting.
Yeah.
It's a way of soothing ourselves when we're anxious.
Yes.
And taking us away from, I don't know, maybe thinking that we're not able or that there's something wrong with our minds, and that they were the thoughts that I was having. But when I look back and look at my young self, it was completely different back then as well, where you're completely kept away from the classroom. You're kept at the back, or you're sent out. Usually we're sent out into the assembly, which was the hall, and just sit down and given a copybook to write. But that...
which is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, what?
I just look out the window. I was happy out when I was sitting at the back of the class because I could look out the window and just daydream, and that was great. I enjoyed that. Although I had my own difficulties then at home, and it was giving me more time to think about that stuff. So I don't know. It's just I don't know. Are we ever going to fucking resolve? Excuse me for my language, but are we ever going to resolve? Understand what the best way is to teach children in schools?
I want to be hopeful.
Maybe I'm a bit more cynical.
Is it going to happen in my lifetime or your lifetime, Georgie?
Well,
depending on how long we live.
Don't know.
There is definitely more talk of improving training. Definitely. ICEP, I think, are brilliant. The Institute of Child Education Psychology. And, Dyslexia Ireland, they hold training as well. There are some accredited places that are training teachers with really well, but there are also some rogue trainers out there. But it's really the teacher training colleges should insist on these special needs modules. I was so shocked to hear from Senator Tim Lombard that they can opt out of the module that helps them to understand how to work with learners with learning differences, which is just shocking.
Yes, it's great if somebody's enthusiastic and interested, but if they're not, they're not. And there's still that lack of interest or concern, but you're giving dyslexic an advantage by giving them extra time or something like that, which is ridiculous. We're just still having the same arguments, aren't we?
Yeah.
And they are falling through the cracks, a lot of them, because they just feel that they're stupid. Like certainly with my students, they all say, if they've got siblings who aren't dyslexic, well, oh yeah, he's really intelligent because it's easy for him to study. So therefore he's more intelligent than me, which is just so sad because they're also really, really intelligent. They just need to find a way to study for themselves and be encouraged and helped with the emotional side, feeling stressed, overwhelmed. They don't know how to start.
Yeah.
All those feelings.
It's sad, isn't it?
It is. But I mean, there are great positives. I mean, it's full of success stories at the end as well.
But that's only based on
having the right intervention.
Having the right resources within the family environment, within the school. But you have some schools who are struggling so much. And listen, this is not a dig at a school or a principal or a teacher or anybody. It's just we're growing, but we're not growing fast enough as society. And we do understand children a little bit more. We understand learning differences more, the neurodiverse stuff, the autism, the ADHD. But the change isn't coming from the top fast enough. The money is not being pushed in the direction of schools to be able to get more resources, more SNAs, more teachers who are qualified as experts in dyslexia and other learning differences. They're big issues today.
And as well, I have to say, like the state examination board or committee, they are so accountable. And really, just watching some of their answers in the Oireachtas, was just quite, it was so disheartening. Really kind of going, come on. Really?
Tell us a few though. Tell us a few of those answers.
Well, like Sascha was saying, the basically the answer about, for example, giving second level students additional time during their leaving cert was, well, it's not really fair, is it?
But we'll give it to them in college then.
But that's the irony, is that we do it in third level, but not in second level. So it's completely fine to totally stress out second level students and increase mental health problems. Sorry, but it does.
Absolutely.
I'm not being too dramatic. I'm being very realistic.
Yeah.
We work with these students. We see what it does to them.
Are they the same board? Are they the same education board then that will give time in college but won't give time in secondary?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same people. I mean, when we were talking to Rosie, the CEO of Dyslexia Ireland, she was saying the same thing. You know, it is completely extraordinary that it happens in third level, but not at second level. Same with Senator Tim Lombard. He said exactly the same thing. It's extraordinary. They allow it in third level, but not in second level.
And it's crazy.
And it's the same board. Yeah.
I see most of my students are leaving cert, and I would mostly do high level English with them. You know, people who enjoy English, want to do well in English, and they're so up against it. They fear they're going to go blank. They're going to misread questions, that they're not going to have time. And we just go over and over preparing for all those eventualities so that in the final leaving cert, they're absolutely prepared. They work so hard.
Yeah.
And they come out with, this year they were 3H2. You know, they do really well.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, you know, when they're into English, they want to do well in it, they can. I mean, dyslexia is definitely no barrier to anything.
I think so too. If anything, it's a strength in different ways when you find your strengths.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely.
You know, because...
And being given the opportunity to work on their strengths, which is what you're doing by helping them.
Needs to be a bit of self-belief that they can do it because they fear I'm going to go blank. It's like, you're not. They might in the pre or something, but then by the time the real thing comes along, you're not going to go blank. You really know. You just go into the zone. Yeah. Planning is very important because initially they're like, oh, I'll just write. No, you must plan. Plan, structure.
And that's key in the the structure and facts and stuff. Yeah.
And it's all in your book?
Mm-hmm. It is all in the book. Yeah. So the third section is about bringing it all together, and it's about sort of the few weeks leading up to exams when you've got to learn those awful quotes and definitions, which you can only really do towards the end. And also when you're in the exams, so looking after your well-being and those fears of going blank. And
it's the timing is such a big issue.
It's what we have to work with. We're just working with what we've been given.
So you've got this amount of time, and this is what you need to try and achieve in this amount of time.
Yeah, you've got to write 7 pages in an hour and 20 minutes.
And I keep saying it doesn't reflect everything you know. We know that, but it's unfortunately what has to be done.
There's in section 1 there, Sasha, right? Knowing your learning style. I still don't know my learning style.
Well, I'd say you're probably typical dyslexic and visual, kinesthetic, tactile, because obviously you're good at doing all those practical, three-dimensional things.
Once I'm shown once, it's like it's just ingrained straight into my mind.
Right, I could never do that because I'm more of an auditory learner. There's no way I could do that.
So what are the different learning?
I'm not either of those.
what are the different learning techniques? Like, how does somebody find out their way of learning?
There's a learning style questionnaire in there, so you can do that inside, and you can see. So whether you're auditory, listening learner, visual, or kinesthetic, tactile, which is doing, making, building kind of learner.
And do a lot of your students when they go to you?
That's one of the first things we do.
They don't really know.
They don't know.
Okay.
So that's one of the first things we explore.
That's the fundamental, because I think that's the most, because I questioned every single time I sat down to learn. How do I learn? This fella was learning this way. He was teaching me that this is what I do. I find words in relation to a fact, to a question, and then they make a poem or something out of it, or a little, I don't know, saying. And I tried that, and then somebody else would say something else. That wasn't working for me because I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember the words. Then somebody else would say, I learned this way. I was like...
I mean, there are so many... What you're doing, but with just that little thing there is metacognitive. So it's where you understand how your brain works. And there's huge research saying if you spend some time working on your metacognitive learning and really understand the benefits of learning the way that you know you learn best, you actually can, your scores go through the roof. So I think it's a brilliant way to start.
It is. And also it gives them confidence because they have a go at it and then they realise, oh, I can be a bit more creative and I'll find some other ways of my own. And then obviously my students have just come up with loads of tips and advice of their own, which are just quoted through the book as well.
Can you remember any little quirky tips?
Quirky tips. Oh God, there's so many. I mean, I must say, it's not all doom and gloom. There's some very funny quotes in there. I mean, my students are hilarious.
Yeah.
I know.
So
it keeps you
it really
happy all
does.
day. Yeah.
There's all sorts in there, but I can't think of the top of my head. But it's just funny stuff. Obviously, spinning chairs. They want a spinny chair.
Yeah.
That's important. They need fidget things, origami, putty, whatever, really.
Keep the phones away though.
Keep the phones away. Get somebody to hide your phone, things like that. Music, some of them want to have music.
Some of them find it off-putting.
I would find it off-putting as well.
Some want to have like like as if they're teaching a class, so they have a big whiteboard and they're walking around the room.
That's how I learn.
There you go.
When I'm teaching somebody else something that I was supposed to learn,
that helps your understanding.
It helps me to know it.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Like because there's more emotion attached to it. And the more emotion attached to an experience for me, I learn from it and I can remember it more.
Talking it through a whiteboard, very popular across the board with the students, and a spinny chair.
Yeah,
they're the top ones for.
I had a spinny chair in the last studio. My chair used to swivel. So this is just sitting in one spot.
It's difficult for you.
Yeah, but you do not see me fidgeting with the book here for the last 20 minutes.
That's the dread. I hadn't realised. I'd forgotten that.
The chairs
you
are
need
gone.
something to fidget with.
Yeah, that's so true.
I have a load of fidget stuff on the desk, so they all ages, they just help themselves. And
can you talk a little bit about the perfectionism side? Because what is the kind of whole theory of somebody wanting to have everything perfect?
I think I have to talk about the student who talks about her perfectionism in it, and it's just her. It's her piece really, and she be one of those ones who had negative experiences in her sort of when she was 7 in primary, being held at the back, doing stuff sort of not for her intelligence level. And she's got very high IQ. She's now doing astrophysics at UCC.
Of course she is.
And she's quoted in there. She says, now I can say quite openly, I'm doing astrophysics, but I can't read. She accesses things through assistive technology. She'd have visual stress as well as dyslexia. It'd be difficult for her to read text. But those, coming back to perfectionism, those negative messages, even though she does brilliantly and she got H1s and things like that, there's always that fear that she's going to be at the back of the class again, that she's failed. And she'd had times of being very, very anxious around exams and thinking she'd failed when she ends up doing brilliantly. But she never can tell when she's done well.
But from her maybe doing well in her junior cert and leaving cert in whatever year she's in college, maybe doing well in first and second and third year, would that not help her improve that? Improve her sense that, do you know what? I actually always do well. Maybe this is just something that's in me and it's time for it to go. Does that make sense? Because that's the way it worked for me.
Yes.
After a while of not believing in myself and consistently saying you're this, you're that, and the other, when I see my results and I was doing okay, I said, you know what? None of this chatter that's going on in my head is even real, because the facts are I'm actually doing really well.
It's hard to let go of it, though, isn't it?
It is.
The critical inner voice is definitely what I call it, and they all have it. They all have it because their self-belief, those messages that they were being told by others, by teachers, comparing themselves to their siblings.
It's ingrained into your mind. It's ingrained into your subconscious mind, and it's not something that leaves because you wanted to leave.
It's from an early age. I think it's quite fixed.
Yeah.
Even though you're doing so brilliantly,
It goes into adult life.
Yeah.
And it continues, and it can always continue unless you become aware of it, knowledgeable of it, and you get educated around it. And when that happens, it does change. It doesn't have the same strength that it would have had when we were in, say, first class or first year in college, because we've succeeded at this stage in your adult life, and that it hasn't, you're actually doing very, very well.
I mean, it's great to talk about it as well. So the students who do talk about their critical inner voice, the fact that they're happy to be open about it is great too. That must be quite a help. That they can recognise it. And
I'm just sort of smiling to myself because growing up, my brother and sister are naturally quite academic. And so my brother used to always say my sister was very hardworking. He was academic and I was really creative. And he knew it would wind me up that I was creative but not academic. And still to this day, I'm in my 40s. My brother will still tease me. But actually, it is something that is always in the back of my mind, that I wasn't academic. I was more the creative one. You're always wanting to try and prove yourself. And it does carry with you. Yeah, absolutely.
Even tell me how does somebody that's dyslexic do research, say for an assignment or a project? Because I remember when I was doing my assignments and I had to do research and stuff.
You didn't know where to start.
I went down a rabbit hole and I got caught up with something else, and I'm 2 hours away from where I actually sat down initially to look at a question, and I'm looking at how to do a bicep curl properly.
This is my husband. And my husband's exactly the same.
Or maybe something, some lovely part of Spain that'd be nice to visit. These are the things. This are a tool that probably would be great for the carpentry and joinery.
But this is also your ADHD mind.
Yeah. It's like I am completely gone. And after the 2 hours, then I'm sitting there saying, how in the name of fuck did this
Maybe that's
happen?
more the ADHD. You're going off on tangents, although dyslexics do.
Yeah, but it's, for me, they're both, there's such a correlation between two. Sometimes it's hard for me to differentiate which is which.
It's all part of who you are, really.
Yeah,
it's all part of who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly academically, it would be about planning, brainstorming first, doing a bit of a brainstorm of what am I looking for, what do I want to get, and then doing a kind of logical plan from that.
Yeah, I also find this, that I do work better and more efficiently when I have something else there and I'm held accountable. Like, have you ever heard the saying, I think Garamate says it in his own book, the only time I could get work done was when somebody needed it within the next 10 minutes, or it was like somebody had to have a gun up to my head for me to get the work done. And that's how it was with me. It was like, I could get 50 emails off Georgie. The first email I might get off for Timmy, we need to get this done. The second one is a reminder. And I might get another 48 emails as a reminder. And she'll send me an email saying, for F's sake, Timmy, I need that by tomorrow. And then I'll come out and I'll do it.
Do you remember when we sat down?
Procrastination, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, so
I spent 2 hours with you. Do you remember when we went through that? I was helping you with the calendar, with the color coding. I had different color pens. I bought a calendar. We had the whole thing. And, I thought I was making real progress. And Timmy's being very sweet and going, oh, yeah, really. But in fact, what you said in the end, you said, out of all the stuff that I got him for this particular thing, it was nothing to do with the color coding and the planning. It was a little book of positive
I have it there.
affirmation.
I have that book there. And the markers you gave me are right there. They do use
Ever
them,
opened?
Yes, I use them on the boards here. But like I know this now in my own head, that when somebody does try to teach me something, that I'll go back to my old ways the minute I leave. I've just came to accept it.
What do you mean?
I will completely not use what they're telling me.
Right.
Yeah. The only thing I use now, which has been ingrained into me, is Google Calendar. And if something comes up, I'll go straight off the call and I'll go into the Google Calendar and I put it in. That's the only thing I use.
Because
There
the
might be some
consequences.
tips in there for you then, perhaps,
But
if
I
you're
won't-
studying at the moment.
But that's fine, Sasha.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to get me to sit and read it first.
Well, yes.
See, that's the other side of it.
Don't know if you read the first one.
You know, no, I did. I flicked through it. I'll be honest. I flicked through it, and I found a lot of it very, very useful. But it was like for me to sit. My brain is telling me that there's something else to do. I have to do something else. I haven't the time to sit here
But
to
you can
read a book.
fidget. You could fidget while you're.
But my head was telling me there's something else that I have to do. You know, if I'm at work, I'm at work. I know I have to be there. But if I sit down and I want to give myself a bit of time and read, my head will say, "Jeez, Timmy, what about them fucking 20 emails that you have to answer?"
Does music help? Does that block things out, or can you
No, it just
get distracted?
I get distracted.
Right. Okay.
You know, in the halls where we do the exams in college, I was taken from the hall because the door distracted me massively. But then they put me into a little room with another 5 or 6 students, and a lot of them were on the keyboard.
Oh, so
That was distracting me. And then looking at them leaving the room before me, and I'm saying, "Fuck it, they're supposed to be dyslexic like me and whatever else." And I said, "Fuck," and then you say, "You're even around dyslexics, and you're still not finishing on time." You know, for me, I was getting maybe 2 to 3 questions done within the 2 hours and 20 minutes that they were giving us for the exam, and it was just difficult. It was just really, really
practice,
difficult. Yeah,
preparation.
But the amount of creative thinking you will have done in that time, of your 20 different projects that you've just developed and created. Like my husband's got dyslexia and ADHD, and I could go away for a day and say, "Oh, how was that project you were on?" "Oh, well, actually, I painted that, I built that, I developed that, I cooked this." "But did you do the project?" "Oh, no, I'll do that tomorrow."
Because it doesn't.
But it's great stuff.
It doesn't. He doesn't get anything from it. You see.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be
He won't
meaningful.
get any satisfaction from it. It's so different for us, you know. Like before the studio was here, I had a workshop, and where you're sitting right there was a bench, and I had a clamp on the bench, and I used to put blocks of timber into that clamp, and I would stay there for 10 to 12 hours a day carving.
Wow.
Just carving. And I was never happier. It was just that one thing had me so, I loved it. I was so conscious. I was mindful. There was nothing else going on in my head. I was looking at the carving, looking at the different pieces of wood that had to be taken out. And it was unbelievable. But if you had to sit me right there and say, "Here, Timmy, there's €100, answer them 10 emails for me, and I'll give it the €100, I would find it very, very hard to sit there.
It's overwhelming. It's
just too
stressful.
much for me.
It's the glare. It's
everything. It's having to
and you're being
look at a calendar,
triggered by it.
having to look at a calendar and find a date that would fit a meeting or something, and that was even stressful. Or when somebody sends me a text now saying, "Timmy, we have to do this," or "We have to be here," or "We're doing this here," or whatever. It's like, I know then I have to go to the calendar and do 1 or 2 things, look at the message and then go into the calendar. And it's just really, it can be really stressful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah.
So, but I'm conscious of it, you know, where a lot of people aren't conscious of it and they just leave the stuff. And I'm not as bad as I was now before today because I have a lighter life. I'm not doing the masters anymore. Work isn't as busy as it was before by choice.
So you're not doing the masters?
No.
No.
I'm not ready for it.
No, fair enough.
I would love to be able to do the mindfulness coaching, but I think I would have to learn it in the same basis that I learned how to be a carpenter, which is sitting there being taught the MBSR program through structure on a practical way. And that's how I would learn it and be very, very good with it. There's no issue there with me doing the meditations and being able to guide people through the meditation or the different 8 stages of the MBSR program. For me, it was the whole process of sitting there and reading books and taking out content.
Timmy, have you ever tried, because you're obviously quite an oral learner, and what I mean by that is ORAL rather than AURAL. So when you speak through, when you talk through things, you're kind of repeating it back to yourself. Have you ever tried recording what you're trying to learn and then listening back to it? Because when you're talking through it, you're helping to add to your memory. And then when you're recording it, you're obviously storing it and then playing it back. It's worth trying to do.
I would have used Otter audio. Spoke into the laptop, and Otter would record my words and put it into a. You hear the fireworks?
I was about to say, I hope that's fireworks and not anything else.
What's that made of?
This is Churchfield.
Yes.
You don't need a reason to put fireworks off up.
Oh, yes, I've forgotten. I used to work in Thames Sweeney.
I thought fireworks were illegal in Ireland.
No.
Someone told me that they were illegal.
No, they're not. No.
Okay, obviously not.
Oh, that's exciting, isn't it?
Huh?
You can't buy fireworks.
Not in Ireland, you can't buy them. But people go to the north, you can buy them freely in the north of Ireland.
Yes, because UK, you can buy them.
Yeah. Going back, I'm
Sorry. I was saying, I think you should try speaking into a, well, I would say like a dictaphone, but now just into your phone.
Yeah.
And then hearing whatever you've said back. It might help. It's just a thought from what you were just saying.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Being multi-sensory in your learning. So you can try auditory things, visual things, kinesthetic, tactile, but you want to be physically doing it and making it, and then you'll retain it. I remember I was just going through some quotes for the book. One of my students said, I can't write and listen at the same time, sitting in class. She's now doing a PhD, but just that whole trying to multitask or, the listening side and to write and to retain everything is very difficult.
Yeah, because you're trying to comprehend what the lecturer is saying to you and understand what he's actually saying right at the same time. Where I'm not writing fast enough and I'm panicking. So to write it and whatever he's saying isn't even going in, I'm just hearing words and I'm writing them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Totally.
It
happens all the time.
It's so difficult.
Happens all the time.
It's so difficult. But in fairness, some lecturers in colleges understand that doesn't work, not just for people who are dyslexic or who have neurodiverse issues going on, stuff going on for them. It happens for most people today because a lot of people don't have the same focus and attention span that they would have had 20 or 30 years ago when we hadn't got phones.
There is that aspect, absolutely.
So hopefully there will be a different way to get notes done. I know we have the pens and stuff. The pen,
the C pens,
and it records the audio.
Yeah, the C pen. The C pen isn't. Students use them, but they're not really fast enough quite often, and alternative notes and things like that can be better than those horrible busy textbooks that they have that are very zingy and glossy and dense text.
Yeah.
Yes, they definitely need some alternative ways.
Did touch typing come up in this about difficulties learning to touch type, but the benefits obviously of being a touch typer?
Yeah, definitely assistive technology is a huge part of it, and that they really all should be learning to type, and that it doesn't matter how they get the information in or how they produce it, as long as they do in whatever way that suits them. So if they want to listen and then if they want to dictate their notes onto the screen, it shouldn't matter, should it? It
shouldn't matter. And it's
how they want to do their exams. It shouldn't matter.
I know, but unfortunately it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're not really allowed to choose what they can do in the exams. It's someone else's opinion.
And it seems like they have to prove how badly dyslexic they are to get the laptop or with dyspraxia or dysgraphia. And why? They have this. Just give it to them.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, it's also the distrust of, so education psychologists are creating these reports and they're saying this person has dyslexia, ADHD and dysgraphia. They absolutely should be using, dictation and what have you in assistive technology.
Instead of the word recommend, it's Georgie.
What's
essential.
That,
they say it's essential.
Instead of the word recommend, I recommend they use it.
But even if they say it's essential, it is down to the head teacher as to whether they think that child actually qualifies. Because some of these reports are old. Some of them they're saying, no, this is not the child that we see in the school.
Depends on the culture of the school. They
Depends
just
on
don't
the culture.
want to give them laptops.
I mean, I've seen emails from schools to parents which are quite unbelievable, basically saying, we don't believe your child is as bad as this report is saying. They can't, they're not going to get this additional support. And there's nothing you can do about it. You've had the ed psych doing the report. It's all clearly written down, but that's the end of that.
Is the final say up to the school, so?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. They do the testing for the exams for spelling and grammar waiver and the reader now.
Same with Irish exemption. Like, even if you've got Irish exemption, it's down to the school, really.
It depends on the attitude of the school. Yeah. Some of them don't let them drop Irish or the third language. Depends on them. So they have to suffer on.
And that's so sad. Suffer on, like, it's true. It's such a true word. Yeah. They have to suffer on, even when their hopes got up that they mightn't have to do it anymore because of the assessment, and then they're put back into that spot.
If they weren't doing the Irish or French, that would free up some time for resource for them. So then they could have extra help in other subjects. I'm all for students focusing on their strong subjects, really. Yeah. And just really focusing on them and doing well at them and their abilities.
Totally.
For their points, but also for their confidence and self-belief.
Do you think we'll ever see a structure in schools like that? I think it'd be amazing. Are we that far away?
It's that, it's mainstream. Everything is geared towards mainstreams. Mainstream schools, mainstream learning, neurotypical, da-di-da-di-da. It's because that's what governments can afford. They can afford to give resources for mainstream teaching, mainstream learning. And anything else is seen as additional funding. And it's not mainstream enough.
Yeah.
All these kids are just not mainstream enough.
It's sad.
Yeah. So I don't know if someone could come up with a miracle solution, or just, in fact, as I said, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. It's only a few changes are needed in the state examination.
Oh, make system. A huge difference.
And they don't cost money.
Yeah, yes, that's actually it's extra time. Would that be?
It's not. How's that going to cost you money?
Yeah,
you might have to.
That will make such a difference in subjects like English and history or politics and society, to do those big essays. And the
other thing is also going back to what we were saying about it's the school's judgment on what assistive technology you have at the end of the day. Is it could be done a little bit earlier than 3 months before the big exams, to help prepare them. Let's go back to what you were saying right at the beginning. Preparation is key, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I've had students who still didn't know whether they were going to have the laptop right up to the pre's or after the pre's. It's like, but you need to be practicing the way it's going to be in the exams. Otherwise, what's the point?
But what's another big one? If the education boards did give children the extra time, it would also show kids that they actually they care. In some bit of a way, which would mean an awful lot.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
Wouldn't it? It's just to feel like, actually, you know what? They actually care. But it's going to take somebody to get into that organisation, somebody with a different mindset to the old way of thinking within the education.
Well, it is so frustrating seeing one senator singing the song for a third of society. Yeah. Senator Tim Lombard. Where are the others? What is, what's going on? Why was no one there supporting him?
Because there must be plenty of people out there in his area, because they're what? Is there 10% of the population are dyslexic? Something along those lines.
And let's not forget 8%. All the neurodiversity. Way more.
More.
Like,
it's a third of our society has a learning difference, right? At the end of the day, it's a third of society. If you look at all the neurodiversity, different sort of profiles, and surely, there is, every senator knows someone who knows someone who knows someone. But somehow it isn't a priority. Go figure.
Hopefully when the third book comes out, Sasha.
Oh, you know what that's going to be? I'll be interviewing you for that. Because obviously at home, at school, it had to be at work. At work with dyslexia.
Whoa.
So
There you go.
I'm not starting that yet though, Jesus. But
that is the plan though, is it?
it is the plan.
Good.
Right. When that happens, you'll be back here in that seat and we'll be here.
I'm going to
Doing another
interview you
interview,
for that
yeah.
one.
I like that. I like that.
You know, because
And any way I can help. Yeah.
that will be a whole
Yeah.
other kettle of fish.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is massive. I don't
And
know.
you'll have to maybe introduce, because there's a big part of being dyslexic and having ADHD and being dyslexic within the work environment is literally mad. And I can get you some fantastic interviewees as well for that who are dyslexic. My own brother Tommy, who's dyslexic, Tommy has never read or write.
Yeah.
You know, he's 40 years of age now. He won't mind me saying that either.
I watched,
You know, he's still the same. And Jesus Christ, if you brought Tommy in here and there's 4 of us in the room, he would buy and sell the 4 of us. Right?
He's a hell of a character.
So he had to learn strengths from different ways. And he has them. And he's a character. But we'll get him on as well.
Well, first things first, let's get this one.
Well, yeah.
I mustn't think about the next one, yeah.
So tell me, so this is out and all since when?
Since September the 5th.
Since September 5th, and people can buy it?
Anywhere. They can
Absolutely
order
anywhere.
it from Waterson's, Easton's. They can get the audiobook. They can buy it online.
Yeah.
They can order it from their local bookshop. Get it for their local library. You know, it's a UK publisher, but it's international. So.
And if there are parents listening here, what can their kids gain from getting this book and reading through it?
It's their own book.
It's their own book, and they'll give them guides.
Because they can then be self-reliant and independent learners, which might help with the whole clash between parent and teenager, things like that. It's their own book. And there's nothing out there for dyslexic learners.
Okay.
No study guides that are dyslexia-friendly that they are ever going to pick up. So I just had to do it. My students said, we just want you in a book. So it's me in a book. This is what I do every day, basically.
How can people reach you if they want to contact you anyway?
Don't. I'm full.
Because you're too busy?
I'm full. I do have a website, so you can
There's
see
tips and stuff in that.
Like the first podcast I was on with you, that's on my, there's a link to it on the website. And
but don't contact Sasha.
No, don't contact me. But yes, so there is a website, and you can order my books and things like that. But there is actually for October Dyslexia Awareness Month.
Yeah.
Danielle, yes, Danielle Sheehy, the illustrator of my books. She's going to have an exhibition. She is having an exhibition in Cork City Library for the whole of the month of October. Okay. And it's the illustrations from the book.
Okay.
So, and with quotes going with it as well. And she did the same thing for At Home Dyslexia when that came out. And it was just incredible. The reactions from dyslexic children and adults and things, and how they were affected by the illustrations. They really connected with them emotionally, because Danielle is also dyslexic and her children are dyslexic. So she has a real understanding of the emotional side of
I
it.
loved listening to your little podcasts that you did when you and Danielle were talking through the illustrations in the book.
Oh yes, we did that during lockdown.
Yeah, it was really interesting because, you know, as you were just saying, it was sort of her dyslexic mind was how she interpreted what you were trying to say. And the pictures that she came up with was great.
So I would send her a chapter and she would be inspired by the quotes, basically. And she do the emotive side of it.
That's very...
Because, you know, I'm not dyslexic. I can't really... I'm the one who's putting the structure in as the non-dyslexic.
Sasha, thank you so much for coming on
I forgot to say as well, another thing with this one is that Dylan Llewellyn has written the foreword, and he's an actor. He's the wee English fella in
Dairy Girls.
Yeah.
The curly hair.
He very kindly wrote the foreword for it.
Oh, nice one.
So, and he talks about his dyslexia. So that's great.
That's something else to look forward to. So,
Yeah.
Well done, Sascha.
Thank you very
thanks
much.
a million for coming
Thank
on.
you.
Well, thanks for having me.
And we look forward to the third time.
Yeah.
Give me a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, listen to me. Thanks everybody for listening, and I hope people have gotten some insight or maybe some knowledge around something that the three of us spoke about today. And you can get Sascha's book anywhere you want, really, or contact. What's the name of your website, just in case?
Dyslexia-support.ie.
Dyslexia-support.ie. And listen, thanks again to Tony. Thank you, Tony. And Georgie, again, as always, for joining us today. Thanks, Georgie.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope you like the new studio and the lovely tulips here. If I not after being oiled, again, my jumper was destroyed.
Lilies, they're lilies.
Lilies, yeah. I got destroyed yesterday off the oils, off the lilies.
You did.
And Tony got destroyed today. But listen, lads, thanks for listening. Mind yourselves and God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.